They said her husband's name would live forever at the resort. They just never expected his wife to walk through the doors and remind them who built it. The air was warm and sharp with salt as Lena Marlowe wheeled her suitcase across the polished walkway of the Seabriar Resort. The ocean shimmered in the distance, the same ocean her husband had looked out at every day while building this place from the ground up. This trip was supposed to be a break, her first real holiday since Clifton passed away 2 years ago. She'd promised her 7-year-old son, Jonah, that they'd spend a week doing nothing but swimming, laughing, and healing. No hospital shifts. No pity from neighbors. Just sunshine and peace. But peace wasn't something life handed out freely, especially to people who looked like her.
Mom, look! They've got a fountain!
Jonah shouted as he ran ahead, waving his small waterproof camera in excitement. His laughter was contagious, the kind of sound that could mend a mother's heart, if only for a moment. Lena smiled and followed. The resort was even more beautiful than the pictures. White marble, tall palm trees, staff in crisp uniforms. On the far wall of the lobby hung a bronze plaque that read, "Founded by E. Clifton Marlowe, 1954. Her heart swelled with pride. That was her husband's name. His dream. His legacy. At the front desk, a young receptionist looked up.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Seabriar. May I have your name?
Lena Marlowe. Room 412. I booked months ago.
The woman began typing, then paused, her brow furrowing slightly. She whispered something to a man standing beside her, a supervisor, judging by his tone and posture. Lena had seen that look before. The one that said, "Are you sure you belong here?" The supervisor glanced at Lena and whispered back. Then the receptionist forced a smile.
Ah, yes. Found it. All set, Mrs. Marlowe. Enjoy your stay.
Lena returned the smile, polite but tight. Thank you. The first day passed like a dream. Jonah spent hours in the pool while she watched from the deck chair, finally letting her shoulders relax. He looked so much like his father when he laughed. The same dimples, the same easy joy. For the first time in months, she felt normal again. Until she realized people were watching. It started with subtle things. A woman at the pool bar clutched her purse tighter as Lena walked past. A waiter skipped over her table twice, pretending not to notice her raised hand. Even the lifeguard gave Jonah a look that lasted a little too long. She told herself she was imagining it. She was tired, that was all. Then, late that afternoon, a man in a navy polo shirt walked up to her sunbed, followed by a uniformed security guard. His name tag read Victor, Guest Relations. "Ma'am," he said curtly, "we've had reports of non-guests using the pool area." Lena blinked. "Non-guests? Yes. I'll need to see your room key, please." She sat up, confused. "Of course." She handed him her key card. "Room 412. We checked in this morning." He glanced at it, then smirked slightly. Anyone can find a card like this lying around. Lena frowned. "Excuse me?" Victor crossed his arms. "I'll also need ID." Jonah looked up from the pool, holding his camera. "Mom, what's going on?" "Nothing, sweetie," she said softly. Then, to Victor, "You can check your system. My name is right there. Marlowe." The sound of his last name seemed to annoy him. "Ma'am, I don't want to make this more complicated than it has to be. Please cooperate." She could feel eyes on her. Other guests were watching, whispering. A woman pointed her phone in their direction, recording. "Sir," Lena said firmly, "I'm a paying guest. My son is right here. You're embarrassing us for no reason." Victor's face hardened. "Ma'am, step away from the pool, please." Before she could respond, he reached out and grabbed her wrist. Jonah gasped.
Mom!
Lena's voice was steady, but her eyes burned.
Let go of me. Right now.
The security guard shifted, uncomfortable. The onlookers started murmuring. Some recorded. Some just stared. Victor's voice dropped. "I said..." But he stopped when Lena reached into her bag. She pulled out a small brass keychain, the one she always carried. Attached to it was a thin plaque engraved with her husband's name, E. Clifton Marlowe, founder, Seabriar Resort. It gleamed under the sun. For a second, no one spoke. The truth hung there, heavy and undeniable. My husband built this place, Lena said quietly. From the ground up. Every brick, every beam. His name is on your wall. Victor's mouth opened, but nothing came out. The guard stepped back, lowering his head. Guests exchanged glances. Someone whispered, "She's telling the truth." Jonah's little voice broke the silence. "My dad made this resort. You can see his picture inside." Victor's expression flickered between embarrassment and anger. I wasn't aware." "You didn't care," Lena said. "That's the problem." He muttered something into his radio and turned away quickly, retreating toward the bar. The crowd slowly dispersed. Lena wrapped her arm around Jonah and whispered, "It's okay, baby. It's over now." But deep down, she knew it wasn't. That night, after Jonah fell asleep, Lena sat by the window, staring out at the dark sea. The sound of waves should have been calming, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Victor wasn't finished. At 2:17 a.m., there was a knock at the door. She froze. Another knock. Louder. Lena tiptoed to the peephole. Outside stood Victor, this time with a police officer beside him. "Mrs. Marlowe," Victor said, his tone cold. "We've had another report. You need to open the door." Lena's voice was calm, but her pulse raced. "What kind of report?" "Possible theft," he said flatly. "We just need to ask you a few questions." "That's ridiculous," she replied. "I'm not opening this door without a warrant." The officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, if you refuse to cooperate, we'll have to take further action." Lena gripped the brass keychain in her hand, her husband's name cold against her skin. She hit record on her phone and whispered to herself, "You picked the wrong woman." Because what Victor didn't know was that Lena wasn't alone in this fight. The soft knock at the door became a heavy, impatient pounding. "Mrs. Marlowe," Victor's voice called again, sharper this time. "Open up. You're only making things worse for yourself." Inside the room, Lena's heart pounded, but her face stayed calm. She looked toward the bedroom where Jonah slept, his little body curled up under the blanket, unaware of the danger outside. She whispered to herself, "Not again. Not tonight." She had seen this kind of arrogance before. People like Victor who wore confidence like armor, convinced their power made them untouchable. But she also knew what real power looked like. It was quiet. It was patient. It documented everything. She picked up her phone and pressed record. "Date," she said quietly, "June 14th, 2:21 a.m. Seabriar Resort, room 412. 2 men at my door claiming I'm under investigation for theft." Her voice was steady, every word measured. Then louder, "You're being recorded. What is this about?" The voice behind the door hesitated for a moment. "Ma'am, we just need to ask a few questions. There's been a complaint about missing property from another guest." "Do you have a warrant?" she asked. "No, ma'am, but—" "Then come back with one," she said firmly. The officer spoke next. "Mrs. Marlowe, if you don't open the door, we'll have to involve Child Protective Services. We understand your son is with you?" Lena froze. Her blood ran cold. They were dragging Jonah into this now. She felt rage push through the fear. "You are not using my son to intimidate me," she said through the door. "You're not getting away with this." For a few seconds, there was silence. Then she heard Victor's muffled whisper to the officer. "She's being difficult. Just get her out of here. We'll say she was trespassing." Lena clenched her jaw. She'd been polite long enough. She took a deep breath, grabbed her bag, and pulled out a leather fold. "You've heard of him," Lena repeated, her voice rising. "Then you should know this resort wouldn't even exist without him. He built it. He funded it. He made this place what it is. And you're standing here in his building, harassing his widow, at 2 in the morning." The hallway went silent. The young officer swallowed hard. Victor's face turned red. "Mrs. Marlowe, please lower your voice. You're disturbing other guests." Lena took another step forward, unwavering. "You disturbed me first." Behind her, Jonah's sleepy voice called, "Mom?" She turned. He was standing in the doorway, holding his stuffed dinosaur. "What's happening?" Lena's throat tightened. "Go back to bed, baby. It's okay." Victor sighed. Ma'am, if you're not going to cooperate, we'll have to ask you to leave the property. That was it. Lena smiled, small and sharp. Actually, you won't. She opened the folder in her hand and pulled out a document embossed with gold lettering. This, she said, is proof that I'm not just a guest here. I'm a legal trustee of the Clifton Marlowe Foundation. I own a portion of this resort. She held the paper up so they could both see the seal. Victor's jaw tightened. That's not possible. Check your records, she shot back. The foundation is still part of the Seabriar Trust. Every employee here signs a clause agreeing to uphold its legacy, including you. The officer blinked. She owns part of the resort? Victor's confidence cracked, but he tried to recover. I'm sure this can be clarified in the morning. For now, ma'am, please. Clarified? Lena said, cutting him off. You put your hands on me in front of my child. You humiliated me in front of dozens of guests. And now you show up at my door in the middle of the night with fake accusations? Victor took a step back. Ma'am, let's not escalate. But Lena's voice grew stronger, firmer, unstoppable now. No, Victor. You escalated it when you decided that a black woman at your pool must have been trespassing. You escalated it when you called the police to cover your mistake. And you escalated it when you tried to scare a mother in front of her son. The officer looked at Victor, uncomfortable. So maybe we should. Go, Lena said to the officer, her tone measured but powerful. By morning, the sound of the waves outside couldn't drown out the storm brewing inside the Seabriar Resort. Lena woke early, her phone buzzing nonstop. Notifications, messages, missed calls. Her video, the one she'd recorded at 2:17 a.m., had already gone viral. It had started with one share. She'd sent it to Marcus Hale, her husband's former lawyer and one of the few people who still respected the Marlowe name. By sunrise, he had forwarded it to a journalist friend at the Tampa Herald. Within hours, the headline hit social media. Black widow of resort founder confronted by staff, accused of trespassing at her own husband's legacy. The video was just under 3 minutes. It showed everything: Victor's aggression, the officer's hesitation, Lena's calm voice, and that final, damning line. You put your hands on me in the place my husband built. It was raw, powerful, and impossible to ignore. Lena stood by the balcony, watching guests whisper and point toward her room. Jonah was still asleep, curled up with his stuffed dinosaur, unaware of how fast their lives were changing again. Her phone rang. Marcus. Lena, his gravelly voice came through, urgent but proud. You did good. That video's everywhere. CNN, local news, even social media influencers are talking about it. I didn't mean for it to go viral, she said, rubbing her temple. Doesn't matter. People needed to see it. The foundation board's already calling an emergency meeting. They're furious. Good, Lena said quietly. They should be. He paused. But listen to me, the resort's management is going to hit back. They'll try to spin it. Don't go anywhere alone. Stay in public spaces, got it. Lena looked toward the door, half expecting another knock. Got it. By mid-morning, the resort was buzzing like a disturbed hive. Reporters began arriving at the gates, cameras in hand. Guests gathered in clusters whispering. Some offered her quiet smiles of support. Others avoided eye contact completely, embarrassed by their silence the day before. Victor was nowhere to be seen. But that didn't last long. At noon, as Lena walked Jonah down to the breakfast patio, Victor appeared at the entrance, same navy shirt, but his face pale and tight. 2 corporate-looking men followed behind him. The taller one introduced himself stiffly. Mrs. Marlowe, I'm Gregory Sutton, CEO of Seabriar Holdings. May we have a word? Lena's tone was calm. You can say what you need to say here. His jaw tensed. Privately would be better. No, she said. Last time we did things privately, your staff tried to accuse me of theft. This time, we'll keep it public. Guests turned to listen. Phones came out. Cameras clicked. Victor shifted uneasily beside his boss. Ma'am, perhaps we can just... Lena held up her phone. I'm recording again. Continue. Gregory took a breath. We'd like to offer our deepest apologies for last night's incident. It was a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Lena repeated. That's what you call a man grabbing my wrist in front of my son? Or showing up at my door with police at 2 in the morning? The crowd murmured. Gregory's voice stayed smooth, but the cracks were showing. Of course, there will be disciplinary action. But for now, we'd like to make things right. Complimentary stay, full refund, future credits. Lena cut him off. You think this is about a refund? Her voice carried across the patio, strong and steady. This isn't about free nights or vouchers. It's about a system that lets people like him, she pointed at Victor, treat people like me as if we don't belong in places we helped build. The silence was thick. Even the waiters had stopped moving. Jonah looked up at her, wide-eyed, his little hand tightening around hers. Lena continued, voice trembling with both fury and grief. My husband gave his life to this place. He poured everything into it. The sweat, the ideas, the foundation that made Seabriar what it is today. And now, years after his death, the people running it don't even know his face. They only see the color of mine. A woman in the crowd clapped. Then another. Soon, the whole patio was applauding. Victor's face. Inside her room, Lena sat at the table with her laptop open, speaking to Marcus over video chat. The foundation is voting tonight, he said. They're considering reactivating your late husband's oversight clause. She blinked. That's still valid? Technically, yes. If the Marlowe legacy is violated, the family trustee can assume temporary operational control until an investigation clears up misconduct. Lena exhaled slowly. So that means you, Lena, Marcus said, smiling faintly. You could walk in tomorrow as the acting owner until the board decides what to do next. Her stomach fluttered, half disbelief, half fear. I never wanted this kind of attention. Marcus leaned forward. Neither did your husband. But when people cross the line, sometimes you've got to remind them who drew it first. That night, as Jonah slept again, Lena sat alone on the balcony watching the resort lights flicker against the dark waves. She could hear distant sounds from the lobby, reporters, guests, tension everywhere. Her phone buzzed with a new message. A known number. You think you've won, but you don't know what you're dealing with. She frowned. Who is this? No reply. Then another message appeared. Leave before sunrise. For your son's sake. Lena's heartbeat kicked up. She glanced at Jonah's small sleeping form through the open door. She walked inside quickly, locking the balcony, closing the curtains. Her hands shook as she picked up the phone and called Marcus. Marcus, she whispered. Someone's threatening me. His voice sharpened. Stay in your room. I'll call security contacts I trust, real ones, not resort staff. And Lena, record everything. Don't open that door for anyone. She ended the call, checked the locks twice, then sat by Jonah's bed. Outside, thunder rolled over the ocean. Lena stared at the brass keychain in her hand, the one engraved with her husband's name. She whispered softly, They don't scare me, Clifton. Not when I've got you watching. Lightning flashed across the glass, lighting her reflection. A mother, a widow, and now, a woman standing on the edge of something much bigger than she ever expected. Because the next morning when the board's decision came through, the entire Seabriar resort would be forced to face the truth. And this time, Lena Marlowe would be sitting at the head of the table. The morning sunlight poured through the glass walls of the Seabriar resort, but for once, it didn't feel warm. It felt like judgment. The lobby was filled with murmurs, cameras, and tense faces. Guests whispered. Staff avoided eye contact. And right at the center of it all stood Lena Marlowe, dressed in white, calm, and unshakable. Cameras clicked again. Reporters scribbled. Someone in the crowd whispered, She really owns it. Gregory tried to recover, lowering his voice. Mrs. Marlowe, we can discuss this calmly. No, Lena said, cutting him off. Calm is what you wanted last night when you sent your manager to my room with false accusations. Calm is what you wanted when you thought fear would make me stay quiet. Her voice rose, trembling but powerful. I'm done being calm. Jonah appeared at the balcony upstairs, looking down nervously. She caught his eye and smiled reassuringly. It's okay, baby. Mommy's just telling the truth. Then she turned back to the crowd. You all saw the video. You saw how I was treated. But what you didn't see is the pattern behind it, the quiet racism that's been happening here for years. Guests turned away for the color of their skin. Locals blacklisted from applying for jobs. Staff punished for speaking up. I have proof of all of it. She reached into her bag and pulled out a flash drive, holding it high. Emails. Recordings. Statements from employees. Including one from a housekeeper who was fired last month. Gregory's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his face went white. The board? Lena asked. He didn't answer. But his silence said everything. She stepped forward. I already know what they told you. You're relieved of duty effective immediately. The board is sending federal auditors to investigate mismanagement and discrimination. You, Victor, and everyone involved in last night's incident are suspended pending investigation. Victor exploded. You think you can walk in here and take everything? Lena looked him dead in the eye. I'm not taking anything. I'm taking back what was stolen. Security stepped forward, but she raised a hand. Don't touch him. Let him walk out. Let everyone see what happens when arrogance meets accountability. Victor's nostrils flared, but even he knew it was over. With cameras still rolling, he turned and stormed out, his once crisp uniform looking small and pathetic now under the glare of truth. Minutes later, Gregory tried to make one last attempt. Mrs. Marlowe, Lena, we can handle this internally. Think of your husband's reputation. That's exactly what I'm doing, she said firmly. My husband believed in hard work, fairness, and opportunity. You turn those beliefs into marketing slogans while treating people like they didn't belong. Not anymore. She stepped up onto the marble platform near the front desk. From this moment on, the Seabriar Resort is under review by the Clifton Marlowe Foundation. And until the board completes its investigation, every decision runs through me. The crowd erupted in applause. Jonah clapped too, grinning from the balcony. That's my mom. Reporters swarmed closer, asking questions. Mrs. Marlowe, what happens next? Are you pressing charges? Will you stay in control of the resort? Lena held up a hand. There will be time for all of that. But right now, I want to speak to the people this place hurt. Her eyes swept the room. The waiters, the cleaners, the bellboys, the security guards who looked afraid to meet her gaze. You've been silenced long enough. If you were mistreated, discriminated against, or punished for speaking out, my office door is open. The Seabriar Resort will no longer be a place of fear. It will be a place of fairness. A few claps grew into cheers. Then came the chants. Marlowe, Marlowe, Marlowe. Hours later, the resort looked different. The same building, but a completely different energy. Staff walked taller. Guests smiled at her as she passed. Reporters lingered at the gates, eager for updates. Lena sat in her husband's old office, the one that had been locked and forgotten for years. Dust covered the furniture, but the sunlight from the window made everything glow. She found an old framed photo on the shelf. Clifton standing on the beach, blueprints rolled under his arm, that same determined smile Jonah had inherited. I did it, honey, she whispered. They'll remember your name for the right reasons again. A gentle knock at the door made her turn. It was Marcus Hale. You've made history, Lena, he said. The board just voted. You're staying on as permanent director. Lena's eyes welled up, but her smile was steady. Not for me. For us. That evening, she walked down to the pool with Jonah. The same pool where it all began. The sunset painted the sky orange and gold, the water calm and shimmering. A small crowd gathered around them, staff, guests, and locals. Ruth, the housekeeper who had been fired, stood near the edge smiling proudly. Lena took the microphone from one of the reporters and said, "This isn't the end of a scandal. It's the start of something new. My husband built this resort to bring people together. That dream is alive again." She looked down at Jonah, who was recording everything on his tiny camera. "Let this be a reminder," she said, her voice carrying across the still evening air. "They can try to erase our names, our history, our worth, But truth has a way of finding its way back home. The crowd cheered. And for the first time in a long time, Lena felt peace, the kind that came from justice, not silence. As she stood by the pool, Jonah tugged her hand. "Mom," he said softly. "Daddy would be proud, huh?" Lena smiled. He'd say we finally finished what he started. The waves crashed softly in the distance. The brass keychain gleamed in her hand. And somewhere deep down, she knew Clifton was still there. In the wind, in the walls, in the strength it took to reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Justice had finally come full circle. If you believe in standing up for what's right, even when it's not easy, hit that like button. And if you want to hear more stories about courage, truth, and redemption, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next one. Because sometimes the only way to honor the past is to fight for a better future.